Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you may notice that my tool of choice when it comes to leashes is the Slip-leash. And there's lots of different reasons for that. I'll get into that and how to properly use them in this video. But one of the reasons that I prefer the Slip-leash is because it's actually safer than the flat collar. If you notice here, Jack has on both the Slip-leash and the flat collar to illustrate what I mean by that. If we look at the flat collar, one thing that we'll notice is that as pressure is put on here, as if I were holding the leash, as pressure is put on here, what we notice is that this loosens up right here and this tightens up right here. So it's actually putting an uneven amount of pressure on the dog's neck. And if I'm behind the dog over here and I start doing that, now I'm putting pressure right here on their larynx. So actually, the Slip-leash is a lot safer than the flat collar when it comes to that aspect and protecting the dog's throat. Another benefit is, as the name suggests, it stops the dog from being able to slip out of the collar. Now, when we're at the vet's office or the grooming salon or something like that, you may notice that they will actually use the Slip-leash more often than anything else. Even when they come out to get your dogs, oftentimes they'll use a Slip-leash. And that's for the safety of not just the dog, but for them, for their clients, and for other dogs, because it doesn't allow the dog to slip out of it. Oftentimes what happens is that once the dog starts to panic and pull away, they can very easily slip out of that collar. This stops them from being able to do it because it distributes that pressure evenly, which we'll get into in just a moment. We've all been in that situation where we're trying to have a conversation or we're trying to do something, we're trying to focus on something, and someone is behind us tapping us on the shoulder or pulling on our shirt or something of that sort, and we have a difficult time focusing on what we're doing. We have to stop, turn around, what do you want? It's the same thing with our dogs, but a little bit more, because this pulling on my shirt, that's annoying. The opposition reflex is an automatic thing. So if we put the dog into the mindset of leaning against that pressure, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to stop paying attention to what we're doing and start paying attention to what's on the other side of that pressure. So a big benefit is that instead of muddying our communication with that unclear communication of the opposition reflex of putting that pressure on certain parts of the dog, instead of that, what we end up with the Slip-leash is that we're able to put an even amount of pressure on that. So there's no question about what's going on. There's no distraction of that opposition reflex. So how do we use the Slip-leash? We don't want to just pop it on and go for a walk because the dog doesn't know how to walk on it yet. The dog also doesn't understand the communication that comes with those types of corrections yet. So we want to A, put it on correctly, and B, condition them to what it means. Now, what do I mean by put it on correctly? One might say, well, it's just a rope, it's just a string. There's no way to screw it up. There is, actually. The way that the Slip-leash is designed is that there's actually a top and a bottom. So, the way that I like to describe it is we want the flat part on top. And what that means is that if I'm walking with the dog, as we can see, it's a straight line, there's the loop, and we go straight down. So now we have a flat line on top. If, however, I were to flip it over, we notice now that the flat line is on the bottom, straight across. Incorrect. And the reason for that is because when I'm walking, if I put any sort of pressure on it and then drop that leash, we can see that the pressure stays on. We can see it in my shirt. The pressure is still on. It's not going away because I've released that. However, If I have the flat part on top, then when I put that pressure on, it immediately releases. I put the pressure on, it immediately releases. So we want to make sure that, as I mentioned, the flat part is fitted on top of the dog. And what that means is that if I'm going to walk my dog on my left side, I'm gonna have it like this. However, if I'm gonna walk my dog on the right side, I don't want to keep it in that same position with the flat side on bottom. I want to make sure that the flat side is on top. We can see with Jack here, as I mentioned, flat part is on top. This small part, the part that's actually connected to the ring, we want that on bottom. And then usually they come with a little tab, this little leather tab. And that's to ensure that that doesn't happen. So what we want to do is make sure that it's fitted right behind their ears, as close up to their ears as possible. And that's because it doesn't affect their larynx when it's up closer to their ears. The example that I always use is that same thing as taking your thumb, pushing it underneath your chin. So you're gonna feel that pressure, especially in your mouth. You're gonna feel that pressure, but it's not cutting off your airway, it's not obstructing the blood flow or anything of that sort. It's just a little bit of pressure. And so that's the same thing that we want with him. So we're gonna put it as close to the ears as possible, and then we slide this little notch down there. Not enough to choke him. As you can see, I can fit my hand very easily in there. Not enough to choke him, it's just enough to keep it there. If you feel your dog's neck, you'll notice that right behind the ears, there's actually feels almost like a little notch right there. And the leash conveniently fits right into that notch. We put the thing on there and it's going to stay. As we can see, there's no discomfort or anything like that. And it allows for that clear communication. Now it's at this point that we need to talk about loose leash walking skills. Because the thing about this particular leash is that it's not meant to have the dog out like this walking down the street, because it's gonna put that pressure on constantly. So the dog is going to get used to it and continue pulling forward anyway. So with a leash like this, we really want to focus on our loose leash walking skills, which I have a video of it. I have a couple of videos about it. I'll put a link up here. So we really want to focus on those loose leash walking skills so that he's no longer pulling. Another important note is that this particular leash works on the design of pressure and release. So what I mean by that is that when I do have any sort of pressure on this leash, I want to make sure that I'm putting the pressure on and I'm taking it off. Putting pressure on and I'm taking it off. And that's why loose leash walking skills are so important, because I don't want that pressure on constantly, because if he ever feels that pressure of that correction, I want him to think something's wrong, I need to stop and look at the handler. So it's very important that when we are using this, we are keeping in mind that pressure and release mechanism. If the dog is doing something, pulling forward, trying to go over there, fantastic. I want to put on a little bit of pressure, and the moment that he stops, the moment that he stops pulling, or the moment that he looks at me, the moment that he stops doing that undesirable behavior, that's when I immediately release that tension. I want him to realize that tension on means stop. Tension off means go. My wife likes to use an example of the word no and whining. So she says that when you put the pressure on, it's like saying no. And then you put the pressure off and it's like saying yes. So oftentimes what happens is that we have that pressure on and it's almost like saying no, because it's a constant pressure. And as we know, if someone is making a noise like that, eventually it becomes white noise. We stop paying attention to what it means. It's the same thing with the leash. So I don't want to have that pressure on all the time, because that's the same thing as saying, no. I want to be able to offer that very clear and distinct, nope, and then release. Nope, and then release. I know, I'm
Sorry, Jack.
And so you may be asking yourself at this point, well, if you use the slip leash, why do you have a flat collar on? And there's pictures floating around the internet right now of a dog with multiple different types of collars on, and everyone is saying, well, why is that necessary? The reason why I have both a slip leash and a flat collar on is because I don't know the situations that I'm gonna find myself in. If I'm walking and I find a park, I may want to let my dog just wander around and sniff. I don't want to constantly be giving him corrections every time that he pulls forward. So I can take this leash and I can actually put it right around his flat collar. And fantastic, now I don't have to worry about him pulling forward and me offering a correction at the wrong time because I'm asking him to. I want him to smell and decompress and all of that stuff. And so this allows me the opportunity to change from a training collar, because ultimately that's what this is, a training collar, to a flat collar so that he can wander around and decompress like that.